The next morning Emilia awoke to find herself unable to move. Letting her eyes adjust to the morning light, she then spotted the reason for her inability to move. Remembering the previous night, she smiled lovingly down at what she was seeing. Wrapped around her sides were Mashimo and Mafuayu, who had their arms clenched firmly around her stomach in a grip that told Emilia that they wouldn't be letting go for a while, or at least until they would wake up. The two young girls both had their faces buried into her sides with their heads resting on her upper arms. Looking straight down herself, however, Emilia was greeted with the sight of two younger girls sleeping on top of her. One had long black hair and the other had shoulder-length chestnut brown hair. Quickly identifying them as Mashiro and her recently adopted daughter Akino, Emilia cooed quietly at the sight as the two were hugging her and each other. With their heads resting on her breasts as pillows, they were both facing each other with their faces closed together. Looking down at the sight, Emilia wondered amusedly at what their responses would be. Even though the two children had tried to hide it, Emilia noticed their rivalry of her as soon as it began. So to see them hugging and being so close to each other brought an amused smile to Emilia's face. Glancing at her alarm clock, Emilia realized that soon it would be time for the three black-haired sisters to go to school. Thinking of school, Emilia wondered how long she should wait before enrolling Akino into the school as well. After giving up on trying to get up, Emilia decided to let the girls sleep for a little longer before waking them. Letting them sleep for 5 extra minutes, Emilia gently whispered in Mashimo and Mafuayu's ears, "Mashimo, Mafuayu, it's time to get up." The two girls just groaned uncomfortably and buried their faces deeper into Emilia's sides. Sighing to herself, Emilia gently shook them awake. Groaning quietly, they both opened their eyes, blinking from the morning sunlight. Spotting Emilia in between them, they both tightened their hold on her as a hug before releasing her while saying, "Good morning, Auntie." "Good morning, dears," Emilia said gently as she hugged them back without disturbing the still sleeping Akino and Mashiro. As the two were about to get up, Emilia then said, "Wait for a minute, you two. Watch this." Curious as to what Emilia was talking about, the two both watched to see what she would do. Gently shaking the remaining two sleeping girls awake, Emilia called out softly and said, "Akino, Mashiro, it's time to get up, my dears." Groaning quietly to themselves, they both nestled themselves closer into Emilia's breasts and stayed asleep. Sighing again to herself, Emilia said, "Not again. You need to get up, you two." Opening their eyes, the two girls ended up staring into each other's eyes with a separation between them of about 3 inches. Widening their eyes in surprise, they both gave a short scream in shock as they sat up with a start and pointed at each other in shocked surprise before they both said at the same time, "What are you doing here?" Meanwhile, the 3 observers just giggled quietly so that they didn't disturb the bickering pair. Then Emilia groaned uncomfortably when the two girls suddenly put all of their weight onto her lower abdomen. Hearing her groan of discomfort, Akino and Mashiro both stopped arguing and then turned to face Emilia in surprise at her presence. Seeing that she now had their attention, Emilia then said in amusement, "Good morning, you two." "Morning, Mummy, Auntie," Akino and Mashiro said respectively as they gave Emilia a hug. "You need to get ready for school now, Mashiro. You don't want to be late, do you?" Emilia said to Mashiro as she hugged them back. Upon hearing her voices, the 3 sisters all rushed to their rooms to get ready for the school day. Now that they were alone, Emilia kneeled down to Akino's height and asked her, "Dear, would you like to join the school that your cousins go to? It's the Blue Mermaids Junior Naval Academy, if that makes your decision easier, or I could enroll you into a normal junior school if you don't want to join the Navy." "Yes, please. I still want to join the Blue Mermaids like you, Mummy." "Okay, darling. I'll try to organize a meeting with the principal of the school to get you enrolled." "How does that sound?" Emilia said kindly. "Don't ever feel that you are being pressured into doing anything because of who I am. Only do something if it's what you want to do. I'll always be proud of you no matter what you choose to be in life." "Okay, Mummy," Akino said with tears in her eyes. Seeing her daughter with tears in her eyes, Emilia brought Akino into a hug with her head on Emilia's chest. Feeling the front of her nightdress being soaked with Akino's tears made Emilia sigh quietly before she stood and picked up Akino with her still crying into her chest. After picking Akino up, Emilia walked up to the window and opened the curtains to look out at the view outside. As she was doing this, Emilia was simultaneously rubbing Akino's back soothingly and whispering comforting words into Akino's ears. Placing a gentle kiss on the top of her head, Emilia again released a sigh from her mouth as Akino had fallen asleep again. Deciding that it wouldn't matter too much if Akino slept for a while longer, Emilia made her way out of her room and headed down the stair towards the kitchen with Akino still asleep in her arms. Walking into the kitchen, Emilia was greeted by the sight of Miyuki at the stove cooking breakfast. Calling out to her adopted sister, Emilia greeted Miyuki and said, "Good morning, sister." Hearing the greeting, Miyuki turned around and saw Emilia walk into the kitchen with Akino in her arms. Replying back to her sister, Miyuki said, "Good morning, sis, are you not going to get ready yet?" Miyuki asked when she saw her sister still dressed in her nightdress. "Not yet, I'm afraid. Akino fell asleep after crying, so we'll get ready later," Emilia said as she took a seat at the table with a sleeping Akino wrapped around her chest. As they were talking, the rest of the family came down the stairs and walked into the kitchen. After they had all greeted each other, they all, apart from Akino who was still gripping Emilia's chest in a vice-like grip, sat down and began to eat their breakfast. After a few minutes of them silently eating, Miyuki suddenly broke the silence by saying, "So sister, do you have anything planned for today?" "Well, I'm going to enroll Akino into school and then I need to go over the CCTV footage for an investigation of theft," Emilia said. "Oh, what happened?" Miyuki asked worriedly. "A crew member stole one of the lifeboats and left when we were in battle. So I have to investigate that as well as search his room for evidence, unfortunately." "Oh dear. Hopefully you'll find what you need," Miyuki said in concern. "Yeah, hopefully," Emilia said tiredly. After breakfast, Miyuki and her 3 daughters got up to go to school. "Goodbye, dears. I'll see you later after school," Emilia said as she waved to them. "Bye, Auntie, Daddy." The 3 girls waved back as they left. After they had left, Emilia got up from her seat to phone the principal of the school. While waiting for the phone to be picked up on the other end, Emilia leaned against the worktop counter for support as she carried Akino in her arms. When the principal answered the phone, he asked, "Who is this?" "Reply," Emilia said. "This is Admiral Emilia Schneider." Oh, Admiral, what can I do for you?" the principal said nervously. "I'm ringing to enroll my daughter into your school." "Oh, okay. I'm sure we can organize a meeting to enroll her into our school. Is there a particular date you would like the meeting to be held?" the principal stuttered nervously. "Whenever you're available." How does tomorrow sound?" the principal asked nervously. "Tomorrow is a Saturday, isn't it?" "Why, yes, ma'am." "Very well, we'll see you tomorrow. Is 10 a.m. alright with you?" "Why, yes, of course, we'll be ready and waiting for you tomorrow for 10 a.m. "Thank you for your time." "Goodbye, principal," Emilia said. It was my pleasure." "Goodbye, ma'am," the principal said, silently relieved that the conversation was over for the day as he hung up. Putting down the phone, Emilia muttered to herself, "Well, that's one less thing to do today. Now I just have to get Akino to wake up and get her and myself dressed," Emilia said as she made her way out of the kitchen and up the stairs to her room. Meanwhile, before breakfast started, when Mr. Munetani Ogorao first stepped into the kitchen, he was unable to believe his eyes when he saw Emilia dressed in only a nightdress. That did little to hide her voluptuous figure from his leering eyes. He was unable to stop the erection from growing in his pants. Fortunately for him, none of his family managed to see it, so he managed to sit down without it being spotted. All through breakfast, Gorao was unable to keep his eyes off Emilia as she ate, even with a child on her chest. He would keep taking glances at her when he was sure that no one wasn't looking. Once his wife and children had gone off to school, he kept his perverted gaze on Emilia as she got up to use the phone. Looking as her ass moved as she walked caused his erection to grow harder. When she leaned on the counter was the only time he stopped watching her ass, as she was now facing towards him, so he instead made it seem like he was reading a newspaper so Emilia wouldn't suspect anything. He pretended to read the newspaper all the while Emilia was on the phone to the principal until he heard her mention that she would be getting dressed. This would be the perfect time for him to peep on her so he could see more of her body. Watching her ass as she walked out the kitchen, he waited a few minutes before he quietly followed after her once he had heard the bath turn on. After Emilia had left the kitchen and made it back to her room, she sat on her bed and tried to get Akino to wake up. This time she was able to wake Akino up easier than before as she woke from a gentle pat on the back. Putting her down, Emilia asked kindly, "It's time to get ready, dear. Do you want to do it yourself or do you want me to help you?" "Can you help me, mummy?" Akino said with an embarrassed blush on her cheeks. "Of course I can. Let's go and have a shower, shall we? Can we have a bath together instead of a shower?" Akino asked, even more embarrassed. "Very well, I'll run us a bath. If you brush your teeth it should be ready by the time you're finished," Emilia said as they both walked to the bathroom. While Emilia was putting the plug in the bath and filling it with water, Akino stood at the sink in front of the mirror and began to brush her teeth. Soon after, she was joined in front of the mirror by Emilia, who arrived to brush her teeth as well while the bath filled itself. After they had both finished brushing their teeth, Emilia said as she turned to look at the filling bath, "Let's go have our bath, shall we?" "Okay, mummy," Akino said as she followed Emilia towards the bath. When they got to the bath, Emilia started undoing the buttons of her nightdress, allowing it to fall off her shoulders and onto the floor. Kneeling down, Emilia began helping Akino to undress. Standing up, Emilia then walked to the door and locked it while making sure to keep the key in the lock. After walking back to the bath, Emilia helped Akino climb into the bath before climbing in behind Akino. Putting Akino in the space between her knees, Emilia began to wash Akino's hair before doing the same to her own hair. After washing Akino's and her own hair, Emilia then began cleaning Akino's body with a soapy sponge. All the while they were both sitting in a comfortable silence before Emilia asked, "Darling, do you want me to clean the rest of you or do you want to do it yourself?" Can you do it please?" Akino said in embarrassment. "Okay, dear," Emilia said as she pulled Akino towards her so that Emilia's breasts were resting on Akino's head. Looking down, Emilia was then able to see the entirety of Akino's front side, allowing her to thoroughly clean it. Starting with her arms, she made her way down Akino's developing body before getting to her little friend. After reapplying soap onto the sponge, Emilia gently cleaned Akino's genitals. Blushing heavily from embarrassment, Akino just pouted from feeling the Emilia's breast on her head and then looking down at her own. Imagining the pout on her daughter's face, Emilia just sighed and said, "Darling, don't worry, you're still a young girl. They'll grow bigger as you get older. Besides, you don't want them too large as they can damage your spine if they're too big." After hearing this, Akino looked up at Emilia and asked, "What about you, mummy? Won't yours damage your back?" Don't worry, my dear, I'll only have a problem when I get to old age, as my bones will become more fragile, so my spine might not be able to support the weight of my chest. But don't be concerned, I've still got a long way to go before that happens. Anyway, I've got good news for you, my dear," Emilia said, breaking the tense atmosphere. "What is it?" Akino asked curiously, having forgotten about her worry about her and her mother's body. "While you were asleep this morning, I've got us an interview for your entry into the school you wanted to join, the Blue Mermaids Junior Naval Academy." "Really? But what if I don't get in?" Akino asked worriedly. "Don't worry, just be yourself. I'll be in the room with you, and if you're really worried, I can go over the questions with you before we get there, although it's just their way of getting to know you and for them to see how you would cope in that kind of situation. It doesn't matter if you're not perfect. You're not expected to be, as you still have time to grow and develop. All they're looking for is that you have the ability to grow and develop yourself." "Okay, you're right, it'll be fine," Akino said as she calmed herself down. "Now we should start thinking about getting out, as I'm sure you're hungry," Emilia said as Akino's stomach grumbled from hunger. Akino mumbled quietly to herself in embarrassment as Emilia giggled amused. After rinsing the soap of themselves, Emilia then climbed out of the bath and wrapped herself in 2 towels, one for her hair, the other to cover her dignity. After somewhat covering herself, Emilia then lifted Akino out of the bath and placed her onto the bath mat so that she wouldn't fall over from the slippery bathroom tiles before she wrapped Akino in a white fluffy towel. Then Emilia quickly dried Akino's short wet hair with another towel before leading the two towards the bathroom door, where she then unlocked and then opened it for the two of them to go back to their shared room to get dressed for the day. Sticking her head out of the door to see if there was anyone around, Emilia sighed in relief to see that there was no one around. Fully opening the door, Emilia then ushered Akino out of the bathroom and quickly led her back to their shared room before either of them were seen. Once they both got back to their room, Emilia locked the door behind her and removed the towels from themselves, revealing their bodies to each other. They quickly got dressed so they wouldn't catch a cold. Emilia in her uniform and Akino in a sundress. Emilia then placed Akino down in front of her vanity mirror and began putting Akino's hair up into pigtails. Since her hair was short, pigtails or just having her hair loose was the only option. If you finish getting ready, I'll go and start making breakfast for you, dear, Emilia said as she gave Akino a kiss on the forehead and then walked to the door to unlock and open it. After she had opened the door, Emilia then walked down the corridor and went down the stairs to the kitchen to make Akino's breakfast. Meanwhile with Gorao, once he heard the bath running, he quietly crept up the stairs hoping to catch a glimpse of Emilia's bare body without being seen. Silently making his way to the bathroom door, he knelt down to look through the keyhole. However, to Gorao's horror, the keyhole was blocked by the key, so he was unable to see through it. Cursing silently to himself, Gorao got up and decided to wait for Emilia to finish bathing and to try and peek on her while she was changing instead. Hiding behind the corner of the corridor, he waited for Emilia to finish. 15 minutes later, Gorao then heard the telltale sound of the bathroom door being unlocked and then opening. Bracing himself, Gorao then waited for the sound of Emilia's bedroom door being opened and then closed. Hearing a door close, Gorao again crept as quietly as he could to get to Emilia's door before looking through the keyhole. To his joy, there was nothing obstructing his view into the room. However, he was unable to see anyone through the hole. Deciding not to give up, he kept watching, hoping to see any part of Emilia's bare body. Suddenly a figure walked into his field of view. However, to his dismay, it was a fully dressed Emilia with Akino behind her. Upon seeing that his quest was ruined, he gave up and decided to go to his office to start working, believing that he would have another chance in the evening or the following day with Emilia. Emilia was just finishing up making Akino's breakfast when she heard her walk into the kitchen. Without turning around, Emilia called out, "Breakfast will be ready in a minute, dear. Just take a seat at the table and I'll be with you shortly." Akino replied, "Okay, mummy." Once Akino's breakfast was finished cooking, Emilia put it on a plate and turned around and saw Akino sitting patiently at the table. Placing the plate in front of Akino, Emilia said, "Here you go, my dear. Enjoy." "Thank you, mummy," Akino said as she began eating. "You're welcome, darling," Emilia said as she turned around and started washing up the cooking utensils she had used. After she had finished eating, Akino got up out of her seat and walked up to her mother, who was still doing the washing up. Calling out to her mother, Akino said, "Mummy, can you wash my plate as well, please?" "Of course, dear," Emilia said as she took the empty plate from Akino's hands and began washing it. "How was breakfast, darling?" Emilia then asked. "It was great," Akino said. "Oh, I'm glad you enjoyed the taste of my cooking," Emilia said with a pleased smile on her face. Suddenly they heard the sound of the front door opening and closing and then footsteps walking in towards the kitchen. Looking towards the kitchen door, they both saw Miyuki step into the room, having returned from taking her children to school. "Welcome back, sis," Emilia said when she saw Miyuki step into the room. "Good morning, auntie," Akino said, standing next to Emilia. "Hello, sister, and good morning to you too, Akino. Glad to see you up and about," Miyuki replied to the both of them. "Sis, can you look after Akino while I'm at work today?" Emilia asked. "Of course. It would be my pleasure," Miyuki said. Kneeling down to Akino's height, Emilia turned to Akino and said, "Honey, can you be good for your auntie while I'm gone?" "Okay, mummy," Akino said. "Good. I'll see you both later," Emilia said as she kissed Akino on the top of her head and stood up to leave. "Bye, sis, mummy," Miyuki and Akino said. "Goodbye, you too," Emilia called out as she left. After driving to the docks and being cleared by security, Emilia headed to the dock where her ship was anchored. Climbing up the gangway and headed to the bridge to access the onboard security cameras. Opening up her laptop that she then connected to the ship's database, Emilia then opened up the camera footage of the day of the battle. Upon opening the footage, Emilia said, "Now then, let's see what happened that day." The footage then showed Kaito launching the missing motor launch and then driving away from the ship. To Emilia's confusion, he then stopped in the middle of the ocean. Confusion soon turned to horror as an enemy submarine rose up out of the sea and Kaito climbed aboard it. The submarine soon submerged, but not before sinking the motor launch, removing any evidence of it being there. Wondering how the submarine could have got so close to the ship without being detected, stopped for a second before checking her sonar to discover that it was still working as normal. Even more confused, Emilia then looked through the list of all the personnel on board to discover that Kaito was the one in charge of the sonar system and that he wouldn't have reported it since he was using it in the battle to flee. Cursing to herself, Emilia then called one of the officers on duty in the base, ordering them to send some military police officers to meet her on the deck of her ship. Leaving the bridge, she headed to the deck to meet the police. Seeing her approach, one of the officers saluted and asked, "What is the problem, ma'am?" Returning the salute, Emilia said, "Everyone, I need your help to search through one of my crew members' room. He has turned traitor and I need your help to find any evidence as to why he did it or what he could be planning." Hearing this, the officer then said, "Of course. Please show us the way to their room, ma'am." "Thank you, please follow me," Emilia said as she turned and led the officers to Kaito's room. Arriving at his room, Emilia said,